Obviously, when you're getting to customer development, it's you've done the business model Canva and you have this idea, you have done some um, theoretical thinking about who your customer is. So you have some ideas that you have your customers might be women between 35 and 50 who live in Lagos, or uh, undergraduates who are in school and they're between 18 and 25. So there are some things that you may already have made some assumptions about. So when you think about who exactly do you want to interview, but then the thing is, we then go from those assumptions and then go to actually on the streets. Let's go talk to these people. And when I say on the streets, it could be virtually or it could be in person. But you then want to talk to real people in this demography, or what do we call it? So I think that the first thing that you want to do is you have some ideas of a few different customer types. So the product you're offering may be, you may have maybe some professional women may be interested in it. Maybe you're also looking at new mothers. You know, then you may have a few different customer groups that you think would be interested in your product. So how do you decide who to go out and talk to first? Who do you even go out and interview to first? So there are a couple of things that you should look at. Is the potential size of the market. So let's say that let's take one of the farming products, and you want to do farm to table. You know, there's some of those products that you take, basically you're getting products from the farmer directly to the table. And who is your end user? Are they people who really don't want to go to the market? Are they busy mothers? Are they busy professionals? Are they stay-at-home moms? So then you may have all these groups and think that, well, maybe the stay-at-home moms is in the tens of thousands or maybe in the hundreds of thousands, and then maybe the busy professionals are just a few hundred. So anyway, you dimension the size. So one of your criteria for deciding who you want to interview when you have all these different market sizes is what is different market types or segments, is what is the size. When we have decided which ones are our larger size, then we think who has the ability to pay. And I would say that you basically look at this three things. So I'm talking about size, pay, and access, and I'll just explain that. Size, I've said how many hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or millions fall into that category. Two, which ones of these have the ability to pay? So fall into the category may not mean that they actually have the ability to pay. So you're offering a service, it is education, it's online, you expect the parents to pay 50,000 naira a month for it. How many people actually can afford that? And of the different market segments that you've identified, which ones actually have the ability to pay? Not that they don't need it, but do they have the ability to pay? So that's another way to look at it. And the last thing is access. Which ones can I actually find? How do I access this market? Are they in a geographical area where I can access them? Are they can I access them online? Do they belong to a special club in which I can go to and then have access to them? So basically you weigh the importance of all these three things: size, ability to pay, and access, and then decide which one of these segments you even want to interview in the first place. And then when we have decided what this segment is, how do you then find them to actually interview them? And I think a rule of thumb is that if they are hard to find, that's an indication that they're going to be hard to monetize. You should be able to have easy access to the market that your product is for. So if you start to feel that you can't even find them to interview them, I think that's already an indication of the problems you're going to have in being able to monetize that segment. But then let's think about different ways in which you can actually find the market. One, you have access to the mentors. Your target market is I don't know, some sort of corporates, groups of corporates or HR, heads of HR in corporates or something. You then start to actually ask your mentors and other people around you for introductions. So very quickly, you can find a few people that will introduce other people to you. Other ways you can access your target market is webinars. So one of the things that you could do is, if you're offering a service such as, for example, investment financial advisory. So if you do some free webinars where you actually give away value, as in you really teach us something that we don't know about financial literacy, and give away some value, so that you have you already have collated people who are interested in that topic. They attend your webinar. You can then, after the webinar, send them an email saying, would you mind giving me some feedback? And then I'll come to how you ask them questions afterwards. But you can then email them and ask them to give you some feedback. So that's another way in which you can access a market. Another way is just cold email. You'll have people's email addresses, and you just send them an email and ask them these questions. But be careful not to spam people. You know how it is. We all get those emails where we really don't want to respond just because of the way it is. If you're going to cold email people and ask them and literally interview them in an email for your product, you should try and personalize it. Don't send that same email to everybody. Personalize each one. Try and say something about the person, the company, something to personalize it, so that the person feels like you've taken some thoughts about sending them that email. Now, of course, there are other kinds of markets that are not so high tech, where webinars and emails are not going to be the way you access them. It would have to be, you actually go out on the streets. Where do these people hang out? Do they play sports? Can you find them at a sports field? And there are some of those that are actually you going to the physical places where they hang out, to be able to access the kind of people that you think would use your product. So, well, now you know where to find them, and you're finding them either online through a webinar, email, in person, introductions. What exactly do you ask them? What kind of conversations do you want to have with them? And I think there's two things you should remember. It's not a pitch. Don't talk about your idea. Don't ask them questions of what they would do in future. Avoid questions that say, would you buy this type of product, or how much would you pay for this type of product? People, in that case, they are speculating, and even they have no control over their speculation. So they're not telling you what they think they would, but you will find when one day you have the product that people don't say what they say, they don't do what they say they would. So the questions that are, would you do X, are not very good questions to ask in a customer development interview. And asking them, telling them about your product and saying, would you buy it, is also a no-no in a customer development interview. Because one, you've kind of just put the person on the spot, like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say yes because I don't want to disappoint you. Yeah, I'd buy it. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I really want that. So you don't ask those kind of questions in an interviews. Instead, you ask them things like, what kind of problem do you have, or what's the hardest thing about doing X? What problems do you have with getting whatever product it is that you're on? So think about what your problem statement is, what problem you're solving, and then ask them, how do they what do they do in those situations, and let them tell you a story. This is where interviewing tips like doing the 5 whys and things come in. Ideally, you want to have the kind of conversations where you ask someone a question, and then you can then delve a little bit further and say, okay, so then why did that happen? Or tell me about the last time that happened, or about the last time you had to deal with X, so that you allow them to give you a story back. And then you ask them, so what was difficult about it? Why was that a problem? Why did that cause you hardship, or whatever? The words that they used to describe the problem to you, and they used to tell you why something worked or it didn't work, is going to even help you when you start to communicate the value of your product. Because no matter how good a copywriter we are, it is the words in which the customer describes the problem that they connect with. And the only way you're going to know those words is in when you interview them and you hear them say that, oh, I wish I had this, or I always have problems doing X. And then you can say in your copywriting, well, if you have problems doing X, look at this. And those things you're only going to get when the real users, the real people who would use it, actually use those words to describe it to you. So you want to be very careful about putting words in people's mouths and just getting them and allowing them to say to you what their problems are, what frustrations they have, what they struggle with, and you allow them to use their words to describe it to you. As much as possible, you want to avoid yes or no answers. And again, you can continue the questioning with, what, if anything, have you done to solve the problem? So again, that will give you some insights on what your competitors are, because if they're telling you, I had this problem, and they are telling you, this is how I solved it, then you know that there is competition, and this is the competition that they're using. And then you can then follow up with, so what did you not like about the solution, or what did you really like about the solution? That again allows you to be able to hear from them what your competition is lacking. So it's really in the framing of how you ask these questions, rather than in the in how it's in the framing of what you say, how you ask it, and how you allow the person you're talking to really give you the information, to use the words that best describe the problem to them. When we have a product that we are excited about, that we really want to get to market, we really can't see the wood for the trees. And we describe our product with excitement and tell people how wonderful it is. And usually people want to tell you, people want to agree with you. Oh yes, it's wonderful. Oh, I wish I had that. That would be lovely. But that's really just people like empathizing with you, not really giving you proper feedback. So it's important that you allow them to use their own words, record that, collate it, and start to synthesize it, see where the connections are. If 5 of the 10 people you interviewed said the same one thing was a problem, then you know that that is a problem to look for. And the one thing that you should always be open to is that when you hear from the customer what their problem is, what the solutions they've used are, what they haven't loved about the solutions, or what other solutions they would like, be open to it, be ready to pivot. The whole point of customer development is that you may have to pivot. I don't think you should be so married to your idea that you can't see that this is what the market is asking for, and not be able to turn it around and make it, at the end of the day, the customer decides what is valuable. You don't decide what's valuable. Yes, you have this fantastic idea, and yes, you can make the best widgets in the world, and yes, if everybody could buy this widget, their lives will be transformed. But if nobody wants the widgets, or they want the widgets with an extra arm, and you don't make the extra arm, you're never going to sell it. So the customer decides what value is, and the only way you will find out about that value is if you take the time to listen to the customer. Active listening. It is not a pitch. Customer development is not a pitch. When you go out to interview customers, do not pitch to them. Do not say, this is what I'm selling. I have this idea. This is my platform. Would you use it? Would you pay 5,000 naira a month for it? That information is useless. The people who told you they will pay 5,000 naira a month for it, when you launch it, go back to them and you'll get excuses. So I think that's my sort of like 2 cents on customer development. I'm trying to quickly go through the questions that were sent to me, and I think I may have covered all of them.